at unicorn as well.
Nice, nice. Well, okay, this is Sir Mindset's guest number 51, Arnaud Henneville Wedholm. I hope I say that right. I am
Perfect.
just learning that he is in Sweden right now, and he is also from Paris, France. But Arnaud is the author of How Hard It Can Be, um, and the book just came out quite recently. You can check it out on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and several other retailers, or I think howhardcanitbe.com. And yeah, today we're just going to have a discussion about like how he perceives entrepreneurship and his startup journey, and what kind of lessons he learned while he was writing the book. So, Arnaud, happy to have you here, man. It's a pleasure. Uh, Welcome in from Sweden.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you guys for having me. I've been very much looking forward to this conversation, so I'm all pumped up here. Got the hat on.
Cool. Can you talk to us a little bit about the broken unicorn and what like what does it symbolize?
Yeah, what's the broken unicorn about?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a great. That would be great to learn more about that.
oh yeah, definitely. So it's I mean it's everywhere, right? It's on my hat. It's on the cover of the book. Literally, you see. So my unicorn has a broken horn, and the idea with the broken horn is that it's you nine startup out of 10 do fail, and you guys know that because you're from the California, so you hear a lot about this, so you know the data. And um, and so every tech entrepreneur has sort of a dream of becoming a tech unicorn. But the reality is that I just gave you the data is that it's very hard. Hence, the broken unicorn. There are more broken unicorns out there than there are unicorns. So that's why the cover. And there are several reading to it. That's the obvious one. The less obvious one is that I believe we're all broken unicorns until we're not. It's like you can fail your way to success, right?
Mm.
Can you elaborate for that? Like by fail your way to success, does that mean what does that mean? Uh,
Well, it means that, I mean, it's very very seldom that a one timer get to the unicorn status, just like this out of the garage, out of the blue. I mean, it does take quite a few attempts to make it through. So the image of the broken unicorn as a so the second layer to it is that it's actually okay to fail. It's actually okay to be a broken one because most likely you go back to it, and perhaps you make it, or maybe not. But it's all fine. It's part of the journey.
so when you were, I guess, trying to like trying to take down Facebook, um, what were you creating with with a startup, and what was the original, like what was happening back in the day?
Yeah. So we the idea. So this is like 2012 when we launched. So yeah, 10 years already. It feels like yesterday, but not really.
No way.
My co-founder and I, we were working in change management. So we were, working with transformation, large scale change initiatives, rollout of strategy in a management consultancy firm out of Stockholm here in Sweden. And so we are very, deep into behavioral. I mean, people change, mindset change. And so as we were working with this and those large organizations, Facebook was getting up speed. At that point, 700,000, 800,000 users. And from a behavioral standpoint, we could not really understand what was so fascinating about liking pictures of cats with party hats
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Tell me
you
that.
know contents of the plates of your neighbor and whatnot. So we found it quite disturbing, and we, after looking at it in more depth, we realized that, so not only is this utterly stupid in our view, and we could do something about it to bring back people into the real world, like having them do things that actually matter, like with a real impact. So we wanted to reinvent the word engagement, right? Engagement to us did not equate to liking from your sofa, but rather doing things in the real world. So that was the first element. The second one was that at that point there was a lot of research, even more so now, but a lot of research about the negative, the side effects of using Facebook in terms of, for example, the growth of teenage suicide,
Yeah.
all mental health aspect. So research was starting to pop up, and it felt just a mission of ours that we would go out and try to make a dent in the universe by disrupting Facebook. Um, so that was the initial idea.
How
Create new.
far did how far did that idea like manifest itself? Like, were you talking to Mark Zuckerberg and he was giving you calls, or like what kind of was happening?
No, it went quite far actually. So we created a MVP, and then we went knocking on doors, and we got incubated into Sting, which is the biggest incubator in the Nordics, one of the biggest in Europe. Um, and so we raised angel money, and we launched the platform. So the idea was that in order to create that virality, we would the mechanics of the growth engine would be a challenge. I mean, we all love to be challenged, right? So and we all have evolved, from a long time ago out of the fire camp by the idea of becoming, greater versions of ourselves. So to us, this idea of self-actualization, motivated by or catapulted or leveraged by a challenge, made a lot of sense, right? I would challenge you, Dan, and Earl, and I would challenge you to do stuff like stuff that I knew you would be more, inclined to accept, like say stop smoking, or enroll to a marathon, or shave your head, or could
Yeah,
be.
sure. Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about the Philippines before, like learn the language. Could be anything really that you would accept, and then the virality would come from the fact that you would yourself challenge your own friends. So quickly,
Mm.
the viral effect would be fantastic. So we would grow with no money really, and that's pretty much what happened. So we launched. We got a lot of, we got the hockey stick kind of.
Yeah, stuck in the hockey stick thing.
Exactly. So the launch was awesome, but afterwards we kind of hit the wall, and we plateaued in terms of
Yeah,
user
yeah,
acquisition.
yeah. Tell me more about that, right? It's because plateau for most entrepreneurs means this is like keep on going and never quit, right? Like we're plateauing and see what's gonna happen, right? Like tell me more about like that time of the plateau and what led to the decision to not keep on going, right? Because that's something that most entrepreneurs will never talk about.
Right. So we didn't went on for a long time. So what happened is that people joined, they created challenges for themselves and for their friends. But then eventually we realized that people were not turning those challenges, were not completing those challenges. So there
Oh,
was,
oh,
yeah, right. So we basically had a YouTube without video, or a Netflix without series,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that doesn't make for a good platform, right? It's not good entertainment. And that's where we thought, okay, here we have a problem. How can we motivate people to actually do the things that they said to themselves that they want to do? I mean, it's not us, coming up with stuff. It's really people from their own coming up with their better self. So it's
Mm,
it's very much the journey of change itself. It's very much the 1st of January every day. Uh,
Yeah.
I sign up to the gym. I'm all excited. By mid-March, I'm done. I don't go anymore.
Can you, Arnaud? I think I have a hunch of like why people, I guess, struggle and eventually, quit or just decided they don't want to keep going. And it takes a lot of like willpower and self motivation for sure. But for you, I mean, in your own experience, what would you say keeps people, the successful habit loop where they're working towards a goal instead of just having a feeling of you're putting in effort, but it's not really like um, nothing's really happening. Can you, talk to us about that and what what you've seen or what you write in your book to keep people
Yeah,
along the trajectory?
yeah, totally. I mean, it's the classic change journey. I mean, it's very easy to foresee yourself in the future, like the desired state of the next version of you, which is a greater version that the one that you have today. But it's very hard to close the gap, right?
Hmm.
To move from your current state to where you want to be. And we all live that every day. We all have this one thing that we want to achieve, and then suddenly somehow we deprioritize because life comes in the way. You know, it's you're sick, the kids are sick,
Yeah,
you,
sure.
you get to travel, you've got too much work, and suddenly that idea of running a marathon becomes, you know, far down the list, and eventually it never happens. And that's the problem with change management, and the problem with people wanting to be something different than they are today. So it's a classic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'd say, I guess, like in the theme of people like CEOs or founders of companies who achieve, I guess, maybe not only unicorn status, but a level of success that's like pretty impactful or undeniable. Um, I'm sure that they have life that happens to them too, right? Where you know, yeah, your health or whatever, or like something that you don't control, kind of affects what your goals were, or like just like for example, like the pandemic happened, right? Like
Mhm.
with those things that happen, some people are able to like push through. Like, what do you think is that magic uh, element, or what do you think that is? I mean, it could probably be their, I guess, their mindset, right? Or like maybe that they're they're just lucky. What do you think it is?
No, I don't think it's luck. I mean, I don't believe in luck. I mean, it's really having that goal, and understanding that you won't reach that, far away goal by just looking at the goal itself. You have to create little chunks of it
Mm,
and achieve, gain momentum. Because once if running is difficult for you, for example, and you have this ambition, and I actually, that was the case, and I talk about it and I compare that in the book to some extent, is that I was never a runner. I was running around the block, and that was about it. And suddenly one day I was challenged to do a marathon, and I ended up doing it because I had that goal. I put it in a calendar, right? And then you go backwards, and okay, what does it mean? What does it mean to achieve that at that time? And then you can create smaller goals, which you
yeah, sure.
achieve out of pure, willpower. And as you achieve those, then you get that momentum which keeps you going. It's like stopping smoking, right? You If you stop a couple of days, then it was worth, those days were fantastic, and you can add another day, and suddenly it's a week, and then it's a month. And then why go back and have a smoke when you have been smoke free for 6 months, and then suddenly you are a non-smoker?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can definitely relate. I mean, not only with the like running or like fitness or stuff like physically, but I think running a company is also demanding in those
Right.
sense. How would you break down the goals of someone who wants to be a founder into little chunks? Would that be make a website in one day, or would that mean just one more customer every day? Like how do you perceive that?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, get that vision, and then start slowly and build success and add constant layers of things that you manage to achieve. Obviously, if you start with, I'm going to disrupt Facebook, I mean, yes, you do have the vision, but then how do you translate that in the day-to-day lives? So for us, it was okay. We were we were management consultant, no experience whatsoever into building platforms, coding and whatnot. We had to find people who would join our founding team to create that platform for us because we didn't have the capabilities. So that was the first step to do that. Then we enter an incubator. Okay, check, let's move forward. Now we get coaching. Then eventually we get interest of angels. Okay, and then we have the platform. All right, so what does it look to launch? All right, let's so it's slowly, Rome wasn't built in one day, right? Rome. So
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
takes a while to create something. And of course, in this culture of you want things to happen fast, I think it's part of the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're presented with this illusion that success is going to come to you overnight, you know, hit you once you've been side hustling
yeah.
between 6 and 7 p.m. after work, and magically, out of the blue, you're going to be a unicorn and eat popcorn forever. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah, actually, that's definitely something I want to kind of talk to you about, Arnaud. Is, I mean, especially the book, right? How hard can it be? And I was also a founder. That's something I underestimated. I actually used to invest in companies, and then it's like, oh, how hard can it be? Investor, and then going to the other side, which is to be a founder. And I tell now all my founder friends that, like, I realize it's 10x more harder, right? Compared to even investing, right? Investing, you obviously, I'm not trivializing it, but you obviously, it's about analyzing and making bets, and then obviously following up. But then if you're in the trenches, you don't have a portfolio of risk. You're only a portfolio of one major risk, right? Just to go.
Hmm.
So maybe talk about, like, what are the biggest surprises that you learned along that journey, right? That really surprised you, as I mentioned, as a from a management consultant into an entrepreneur. What are the things that you realize, like, wow, actually, I didn't really know that was that hard, right?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, because we're management consultants, I'm MBA educated. I thought I knew things. Turns out, uh, yeah, I was really surprised I was hit by reality that it's hard. It's really hard to keep. I mean, first, the first time we applied to this incubator, we got rejected because we came as management consultants with our nice,
Next,
sleek
nice PowerPoint.
PowerPoint,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was just emptiness in it. I mean, it was nice. It was a nice narrative. We're great storytellers, but okay, guys, that's fantastic. You're gonna displace Facebook. Okay, tell us how. Yeah, I mean, how hard can it be, right? So we knew nothing. We're totally naive to the whole experience. So right off the bat, day one, we we got slammed uh, right away. So and that kept coming. So for me, that was the biggest surprise, is that even when you feel that you're getting momentum and perhaps you're getting traction, there is something that I've come up with, is the illusion of traction,
Hmm.
because it's always a sort of a S curve. um, so it may look like traction goes up, but then obviously it's an S, it's a Sagamore curve. Eventually, you get the plateau. Either you go down. I mean, most likely it's a bell curve. But what you want to do is build another S curve on top of the plateau, right? So it keeps going S curves. Um, and so that is very, very hard. And that means you have to keep grinding forever.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I mean the biggest lesson for me is how harsh it is, how difficult it is, and to keep going, to keep that faith, that belief um, in what you do and in yourself. Yeah, in yourself, that you've got what you need in the tank to keep going constantly after rejection and rejection and rejection. You know, I'm in sales, so I was in consulting, but I was selling consulting.
Uh-huh.
So I'm used to no's. It's I don't, you know, it's okay for me to get a no. So if you're not used to that, the journey is going to be rough.
For
Um,
sure.
so and even though I'm used to no's, it was rough. You get so many no's constantly. So that was the biggest, really the biggest takeaway for me was the amount of heavy lifting that you have to do constantly. It never gets easier, right? I guess it does at some point, but for me, it never did.
Yeah, no, that's so funny. I mean, Arnaud, I haven't gotten a chance to like pick up your book and look into it more, but um, do you have like a interesting account, like either personal or, you know, you found somebody else's experience that you'd want to share, or like, you know, that kind of speaks to the book? Anything of that
Yeah, so
sort?
the book is the journey itself, right? So it's really what we've been talking since we started here. It's, you know, what is it to be in the shoes of an entrepreneur? I mean, the daily grind and the emotional roller coaster of it, not just, you know, the nice fancy words that you can read everywhere, the traction and virality and MVP and whatnot. The actual, what happens when you get that constant door in your face and you have to get up again and try something else and have to pivot. I mean, we're talking about you know, challenging Facebook eventually, as we, because we didn't stop with, okay, people are not creating challenges and are not uploading their proof of completion. We actually try to incentivize them with all sorts of extrinsic motivation. So we brought in some celebrities. The idea was that, well, that, you know, if you have celebrities on board, you will be more inclined to do the things. If a celebrity like Sasha Cohen or whomever would challenge you,
Sacha Baron, the guy from Borat?
yeah. So it didn't join, sadly, but we had some amazing celebs. Like we had Eric Larsen, which is a world record holder. He's been cycling in the South Pole with his fat tire bike on our platform, literally challenging people for raising money for Parkinson's disease. So we had that kind of stuff, and it was a world record, you know, Guinness World Record live being run onto our platform to incentivize people to not only bike but also donate. So we really, you know, walk the talk and you
Yeah.
know, walk the walk and talk the talk. We tried hard to motivate people, but it's funny how no matter the amount of external extrinsic motivation will take you someplace, if it doesn't come from within.
I
That's
think
also
I think that's pretty important. Like all the motivation that you, Earl, and I have, it all comes from within, right? It's not like, I mean, you know, yeah, we're all motivated to make $1 million or like cure cancer, but eventually it kind of subsides, and like you'll get tired, you want to like sleep, or I mean, you want to do something else. And I think that like a lot of what people do is it's based off of feeling, but then it's also based off of like your, what was it, like the other brain, like the non-feeling brain, like I was reading in
The
some
left
book,
the left brain is the more logical brain, right?
the
The right
logical brain.
the
Yeah.
right brain is the more emotional one, right?
creative, and yeah, exactly.
But I think yeah, since we're humans and we don't have completely control over our actions as much as we like to think we do, I don't think we make these decisions consciously. Like I also like hearing someone say that subconsciously, or our subconscious makes up like 95% of our thoughts versus like 5% comes from rational, real thoughts. So it's
Totally.
it's really interesting. And then when you like put that toward like thinking about a startup or new innovation or business, and uh, where the objective is to change your not only you know like your target customers and all that and like consumer behavior, but also change your own attitude towards work. It's
Mhm.
quite the different thing, right? Since like somebody who works a 9 to 5 or just a traditional job at a corporation, they are taught to work, come in at 9 and do as much work as they can, and go home, and that's their day. But with a founder and and people, and as you mentioned, being in the shoes of the entrepreneur, that job doesn't go away, and that can also extend into the late hours of night or early hours of night or things like that. It's a different mindset, and if you don't do one certain objective, then you get closer to failure every day, or it just stays the ship just stays in the water.
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean, I
think
guess Arnaud, I mean, talk about intrinsic motivation. Tell me more about like the book. What Yeah, I
oh
was saying that what motivated you with the book, and how did you push through to complete the book?
Yeah, because that fits into the former question, right? How do you take that vision of having a book on a shelf to actually writing it? Do you do it page by page? Um, so the motivation for the book was really that. So we did those two massive pivots. So we went from B2C Facebook to B2B, selling challenges to corporations because we had the platform for challenges. So eventually we flip it, and we went on banging the phone to sell, challenges to large corps, which worked like a charm because it's easy, it's top down. It's fairly easy to engage people in an organization that way. And then eventually we broadened the scope because that was not sustainable, right? I mean, we would end up being a telesale company calling people, right? So that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to build tech. So we ended up adding features, and slowly but surely we became an enterprise social network. And the arc of the book, the story is that from Facebook to Facebook. So we went after Facebook to displace them in B2C, and we got kicked back by Facebook as we went to B2B with an ESN, a social ESN, enterprise social network, and Facebook launched their own workplace at work, right? Workplace by Facebook. So there you got the whole narrative of the book from Facebook to Facebook. But anyway, we failed. The reason for the book is really that, yeah, again, all of the content that you get out there is focused on success, like the glossy
yeah,
stuff,
sure, yeah,
right? The Elon Musk, but you can't apply the content or the nuggets of wisdom that you get from such a fantastic success, because we're not talking about the same scale. And so if you are a newbie and you're trying to build your own startup, I mean, reading about Richard Branson that sends Galactica into space won't help much. So the motivation was really, let me take you through what it really is, because I couldn't find any content about this.
yeah.
Right.
It's definitely kind of difficult to. I mean, just in comparison, like somebody who's a billionaire and top on Forbes compared to a guy who's regular, person who well, I mean, I'm certainly, they didn't start there either. I mean, Elon Musk was sleeping on the YMCA floors, but uh,
Yeah.
just, I mean, hearing from a source that's is more easily, relatable, or easier to picture, it makes the makes it more relatable, and I think when you relate to the content, then it's kind of more applicable. So that's a pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And sorry.
yeah, no, I guess Arnaud. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to also know more about like you, right? Like what tell us more about your childhood, your experiences in early life that kind of led you to end up wanting to build a company and ultimately writing a book, right?
Yeah. No, I think I've always been an entrepreneur. There's this question: is it nurture or nature? Um, uh, as far as I'm concerned, I've always been trying things out. I mean, this was not my first company. It was definitely the biggest attempt, the one that sucked me in for 7 years. But um, but I did try so many times before, often as a side hustle, on the side of studying, on the side of having a normal job. And I think that's part of the reason why the other didn't pan out, because again, if you only have committed, you can't expect getting the full results. So all to say that, yeah, I've always been um, into trying things out, like really throwing myself into the experience, and you know getting feedback and learning from real world experimentation. So entrepreneur for me is a entrepreneurship is a way of life, right? I just try things. Like after the failure, I decided to write this book. I mean, obviously, I'm not a writer, or I wasn't then, and I just tried out, and yeah, it worked. Um, so yeah, just you only live once, so I really take it to heart, and I try stuff and see where it sticks.
Yeah, I think I'm similar to you, man. Just what do you call it? Experimenting and definitely just seeing what sticks. Crazy that you mentioned that. I think the podcast we hit 51 episodes exactly. When we first started, we were not what we were doing at all. I was like uncomfortable with talking, and it was pretty funny. But that's crazy, man. I mean, yeah, no, I think you take one step and then you take another step, and definitely that's what it is. I saw your what do you call it? One of your social media posts where you went running, but prior to running, you were talking about how it was warm inside and it was you know you were comfortable, but you still decided to like run 10 kilometers or 6 miles or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, can you tell us like I mean about what it feels like to achieve that success? Because I think sometimes we're also just scared to achieve success. Like we like the comfort and we're scared to change or be different because
Mm.
it's so much easier to be comfortable, and you think you don't want to go through pain because running's painful, man. I've ran before. It can get painful, like mile 4 or like even mile 1. You can think of quitting. I think also like with you, I guess as a runner, or when you're starting to feel like, oh crap, my body's giving up, or times like that. Uh, what do you think keeps you, you know, running and going?
Yeah, no, it's a very good. I think running is a very good parallel that you can make for life, because it never gets easier, right? Or for startup life, no matter how much you run. And I now I've picked up running quite some. I did a half marathon here this weekend on ice. It's a run here in Sweden. You run on ice for 21 kilometers,
You
and it was
skate or you run?
freaking painful. And I did it last year, and it was not easier because I had done it already. And I run every week. I run a lot, and yet it doesn't. It never gets easier. So yes, you sure, and that I think is the point we made earlier. You know that you can achieve the distance because you've run it before. So in your head you've built that connection. We're talking about subconscious and conscious decision making and how you operate. You know that you've done it, hence you know that you can do it again. So it's not a question in your head. You're not debating with yourself whether you can do it or you can't. You actually can. That's why you go. Then it becomes tricky when it's something that you've never done at all, because you have nothing to relate. And that is to the point that you were mentioning before. uh, and that is true. I mean, it's David Eagleman, professor at Stanford, neuroscientist, who's done a lot of research. He has some pretty cool tech that is building just now. But anyway, yeah, the research says that we function 95% subconsciously. And the reason for it is, it takes a lot of energy to do anything that is different from what you're used to, right? So I mean, if you look at your day, you wake up always the same way, always the same
Sure.
side of the bed, right? And you do your mechanical thing the whole day. And when you are faced with a decision that you haven't made before, it becomes suddenly uncomfortable, very difficult, that you have to assess, okay, what are the risks? What are what am I dealing
Reward.
with here, right?
Yeah.
And that is only because you haven't faced it before. Now, the beauty of the way we're wired is the plasticity of our brain, is that we can actually recreate those pathways in a way that makes us more adaptable to the next thing that is coming at us. So if we go back to running or gymming and listen to one of your podcasts, you talk about going to the gym. It's kind of the same thing, right? If you keep lifting those 5 kilos weight, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to be muscled. You're not going to be stronger. Nothing. You have to stress those fibers over and over, get bigger weights so as to increase
Yeah,
your
sure. Yeah.
volume, right? And as you do that, you become more comfortable with the idea of lifting heavier, and you don't have to question yourself again. So if you put that into the startup context, I think, and also the organizational context, we have to seek failure. That's my big thing coming out of the book, is that instead of merely embracing failure, which is to say that, okay, I'm trying something and it's not working, oh shit, and I embrace it, as in I'm reactive to it. What if instead I strategically plan for failure, like I throw myself in it
Yeah.
and see what
I
happens,
like that point. Yeah.
right?
I mean, that's pretty novel. I mean, no one ever. I mean, it's really rather rare that people want to talk about failure or like just
Yeah, yeah. I
not
think
feeling
most of the
successful.
time, right? Then we hear people saying like, "Don't be failure." Then Arnaud's even taken to the next level, which is let's seek for it, right? So we
Right.
can we can prepare for it more.
Exactly, because the only thing we are afraid about, which is something that I've really learned through this journey, the only thing that we are afraid is the belief that we create for ourselves that we are going to fail. And I've challenged myself. I'm going to give you like a stupid example. I don't like to jump from heights,
Yeah.
and kids tend to do that. So I've got 3 kids, and in Sweden we swim in lakes, and they have built in on the edges of lakes, they have those
Well,
things that you can go on and walk up the ladder and jump. You've got different
Oh
heights,
wow!
2 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters,
yeah.
right? And I hate it. I tell you, I hate it. So when I last summer, and I know this thing because I was already comfortable with this idea of failing. Um, I went up with the idea of jumping. I stood in front of at the edge of it, and I looked down, and it felt high. So I stood there for a while, and I knew that the only thing that kept me from jumping was the idea that I would be scared. But being scared is an illusion. I mean, it doesn't exist,
Exactly.
right? You can't be scared of anything. It's just like you are making yourself a movie of you jumping, and this thing apparently being something that is scary, but there's nothing such. So I went down the ladder, I look up, and I saw kids, including mine, jumping, and I felt really bad. The whole afternoon passed, and we're about to go, and I said, no, I can't leave it this way. I have to go and jump. So I
Mm.
went up and I jumped. And after that, you realize that, man, it was super easy after all, and it was nothing to be scared about. Again, fearing this thing that you haven't experienced, the only reason you fear it is precisely because you haven't experienced it. So what if instead you were to proactively throw yourself into things that you haven't experienced yet, so that next time they come at you, you are comfortable with it. It's not a problem, and you can keep going and, you know, keep moving forward in spite uh, of resistance that you may get from the environment.
Mm.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
pretty deep.
yeah, I guess are not. I mean, what's your advice? How do you push through the fear, right? Because it's like entrepreneurship, right? Like the one thing that actually people are so afraid of starting something, and to be honest, starting something, then even talking to investors is their fear of getting rejected or perceived to be a failure,
Mhm,
right? I mean,
mhm,
in some cultures too in the world, right? Like if you start a business, you tell people and it doesn't work out,
mhm.
you have a lot of shame of like, oh my gosh, like I can't even face friends that like, friends I told people I'll start a business and then it end up failing. How do you
Mhm.
push through that fear, which is a lot of our listeners in the podcast is like in the fence. I was telling Dan, right? Like, we
Right,
looked at our listeners, they're kind of they want to do it, they're
right,
they're in the process of doing it, or they're even in the early stage of doing it, but there's still that like thing in your inside of you that like, oh man,
right.
I shouldn't just push through anymore. How do you
Yeah.
push through that?
I think, once you realize that the only thing that you fear, and you just mentioned it, I mean, it's external. It's like the people to whom you believe will be impacted by your non-success, or will look at you differently. It's always from the perspective of others. If you
Mm,
just look at yourself, and the fact that in the end it doesn't really matter, because the one thing that you're doing it for yourself, then the perception of others is totally irrelevant. So the one thing we fear is the fear of other people's opinion. It's the so-called FOPO. So you've got the FOMO, the fear of missing out,
That's
and then
hilarious.
you've got the FOPO,
Sure.
right? But if you forget about the FOPO altogether, which is also why we don't put the pictures online that we want to put, but
Sure.
we don't put, or we remove them. I mean, I've done that myself. You put a post, after 3 hours doesn't get any traction. You're like, shit, this was a bad day.
a lot of people do that. That's true.
Of course.
Uh, Absolutely, yeah, no, that's super relevant for the times we're in. I mean, I think another part of it is like the times we're in, or they're new times. I mean, there's like new Web 3.0 coming out, growing.
Even 3.0 now, right?
Yeah. Then there's how do you say it? And then there's like I mean, TikTok coming out, and you're like, naturally you just want to have things be the way they are. But I mean,
Yeah,
we've always evolved as people. I mean, Darwin's theory of evolution is
that's
held
right.
true. I mean, I think even in 1,000 years from now, it's going to be drastically different. So I think we have to evolve, or either that, or we're kind of just stuck here. Which in 10 years, if we were to look back, we wouldn't like that. So I mean, that's a pretty you know insightful and kind of necessary to take some steps here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what's pretty absurd, and you mentioned Darwin. It's quite interesting, because I do talk about this in the book. Is that we so the reason we seek comfort
Yeah,
is because our brain seeks to protect us, right? So the incentive, I mean, the only purpose of your brain is to keep you alive, right?
right,
It's there so you can be part of evolution by natural selection. Um, because the moment you die, you're of no good. So that's where we come from. Now, back then, you had to be careful where you went away from the fire the campfire, to look for food, because you might be eaten by a
bear
saber-tooth
or
tiger,
something.
right?
Oh, saber-tooth.
But today, you don't have such tigers in between the shampoo aisles and the shampoo and the diaper in the supermarket. There's no reason for you to fear anything. Nothing is going to happen. So the fear that we experience is only based on we have it from our reptilian brain, but it's of no use, and that is what is actually refrain. I mean, you know, impeding us from becoming better versions of ourselves. And now the modern version of the tiger is the Facebook like, or the uh,
Wow.
the TikTok like,
Exactly.
right?
That's a good
I,
point.
I,
That's a good
I love
point.
love these analogies. I kind of think that the Facebook like is the tiger that 2,000 years ago. I
Right.
guess or not, we're going to kind of the latter part, a few last minutes of our podcast here. But I mean, maybe I'll ask two questions. Kind of the questions I always like to ask our guests as we wrap this up. The first question for you is, um, if you had to go back again in time and talk to your 18 or 90-year-old self, like Arnaud in university or whatnot,
Right.
what will you tell him right now, knowing what you know right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been thinking a bit about this lately. So on the one hand, I would tell nothing, just do what happened, because it was probably meant to be, and all those experiences that I collected since then have been creating the person I am. So that would be the great sort of a view of it, right? Yeah, that's another long debate, philosophical debate about free will and not whether do we whether we can create a new us, or whether the you that you're supposed to be is already built in, and the purpose is on peeling the onion, in a way, just getting rid of the constructs that you've acquired along the way, all those models that you've been fed with, as opposed to adding stuff and uncovering yourself by the subtraction idea, as opposed to adding stuff. Um, so that's one way to look at it. Another potential answer would be to trust what myself more then, because of course, and perhaps that's a game of getting older. Um, it's part of the
Yeah.
process, right? And, I was very much looking to impress others by being smart, by being whatever, you know, not trusting myself fully into what I knew then, so not trusting my gut feeling, and being scared of being judged, like you said before. I didn't know what I know now. So fear of people's opinion is a is a big thing when you are growing up, because you believe that you lack the experience, that you haven't collected enough points on that journey, that you're worth opening your mouth. So trusting yourself more would be something I would advise myself to do if I was 20 today. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And then maybe my final question before I turn it over to Dan for his final thoughts is, want to share to your audience?
Oh, I missed the question. Sorry, Earl.
Sorry, in 1 to 2 sentences, what is your own personal startup mindset?
Um, so yeah, go for it. Nothing is, you say in tech, like, nothing is gonna break, but it's the same. You can apply to yourself, right? Go for it. You know, see yourself as a tech product, and throw yourself into the experience and get feedback by being in the world, as opposed to making fantasy of what
Yeah,
could
fantasies.
happen. Just go for it. Like, go after the thing that you believe you can impact the most, and what you're excited about. I mean, passion is a key one for me. Don't look for it under your bed. It's not going to pop up. Just feel it from within, and live the one life that you have, out of the passion that you have through it in the world.
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, I think, yeah, we ask that question a lot. I think that following through with the idea is more than it's the whole, it's everything. But yeah, Arnaud, I think something remarkable, or something just I noticed from the conversation we had here today was and you were talking earlier about fear, and this whole thing that prevents action is probably the fear, probably like internal and subconscious stuff. And I think you offered a lot of great solutions and analogies that we can really apply and think about as we charge through life. So thanks for the wisdom, man. Well, that does it for the episode of Arnaud. But Arnaud, lastly, how do we read your book, or how do we I guess get in touch with you and things like that?
Absolutely. Well, thank you first for having me on. I mean, it was a blast. I think we had a good laugh.
Yeah.
You think of me as the like and the tiger of so that'd be fun. So thanks for that. The book is How Hard Can It Be? Startup lessons from trying and failing to take down Facebook. So it's really focused on the failing part. You can get it everywhere, really. Every major platform, in every market, it's globally distributed. And I have a website, which is howhardcanitbethebook.com, where you can order it straight from there. I also give a bonus for folks who buy it and send me the receipt, which is the seven traps on the road to startup success. And I can just give you two ones quickly, just the header. One is the illusion of traction we talked about, and another one would be like the F word, funnel, and it's a discussion around the sales funnel. How do you work with the sales funnel? So I've got 7 of those, really neatly packaged for people who get the book, and I'll send that to them right away. So thanks a lot again. It was a blast, and it's okay to fail and to be a broken unicorn until you get to your real unicorn status.
Yeah, that does it.
Thank you, Arnaud. Thank you so much.